How can $1 billion worth of gold be stolen? That is the central question of this story. The story begins with a man who appears to be a wealthy millionaire on the surface, but in reality he is a master thief. Whenever he sets his sights on something, he eventually finds a way to reach it. His life is filled with luxury and comfort. Expensive hotels, lavish parties, and daring thefts seem like they will continue forever. But as they say, carelessness eventually leads to trouble. Because of his past robberies, his enemies start chasing him again. One of them is a man whose hat he once stole, and now that man wants revenge. Slowly, the situation becomes worse, and escaping starts to feel impossible. Danger surrounds him from every direction. Then suddenly, a mysterious group appears and rescues him. However, this help is not a favor, because they also have their own motive. The group is searching for $1 billion in gold hidden inside a prison cell. To accomplish this mission, they need people who can achieve the impossible. This is where the story takes a new turn. Ringo is not an ordinary thief. He is an expert in disguises, and picking locks is extremely easy for him. Even the safe deposit boxes of major banks cannot stop him. But Ringo is different from other thieves. He is not greedy. He only steals from criminals and returns the money to the victims. Ringo also has a very unusual habit. After completing a robbery, he never runs away. Instead, he calmly walks out through the bank's main door. By the time people realize what has happened, the security cameras only capture his back as he walks away. With this mindset, Ringo forms a small team called the Misfits. The team includes Vic, an explosives expert who once destroyed an entire illegal weapons factory by himself. Another member is a pilot who appears calm and beautiful, but if necessary, she can take on an entire group of gangsters alone. Even with such a powerful team, Ringo knows that their next mission will be their biggest challenge yet. Their target is a billionaire named Scholes. On the outside, he looks like a respectable investor, but secretly he earns money by working with terrorist groups. He has built several private prisons. Inside one of these prisons, he has hidden more than $1 billion in gold. Reaching this gold will not be easy. For this mission, they need another man, a thief who is an expert at escaping from prison. That is when they focus on Richard, who is currently locked inside a prison in Los Angeles. This is where the real preparation for the massive heist begins. Richard is not an ordinary criminal. He is a well-known name in the world of professional thieves. Even though he is behind bars, his planning skills and intelligence remain sharp. The Misfits know that if anyone can escape from prison and then secretly return inside, it is Richard. Meanwhile, tension begins to rise inside the Los Angeles prison. Federal agents receive orders to transfer Richard to a private prison. This private prison belonged to none other than billionaire Scholes. As soon as Scholes received this news, he personally came to oversee the transfer. However, the reason was not responsibility. The real reason was the rimmed hat that Richard had once stolen from him. Scholes did not want to miss this opportunity. He wanted Richard brought to his private prison so he could finally settle the score. Richard also slowly began to sense that something was wrong. He realized that danger was approaching. To get information, Scholes captured one of Richard's old friends and began interrogating him. But that friend was extremely loyal. No matter how much pressure they applied, he refused to reveal anything. In a burst of anger, Scholes ignored prison rules, shut down the security cameras, and ordered his men to torture the prisoner. Eventually, Scholes managed to track down Richard. Meanwhile, Richard had no idea that someone was searching for him. As soon as he was released from prison, he selected a new target. Sitting in front of him was a billionaire wearing an expensive watch made of pure gold, platinum, and diamonds. Richard tried to start a conversation, but the man paid no attention to him. Thinking quickly, Richard pretended to spill a drink on the man. While pretending to clean the man's clothes, he skillfully stole the valuable watch within seconds. He believed everything was going smoothly, but suddenly the situation turned against him. The guards caught him, and it was revealed that the man was none other than the famous Prince El Hali. Richard paid a heavy price for his mistake. The guards brutally beat him. However, Richard had already planned everything carefully. Before the beating began, he secretly hid his room card somewhere safe. As soon as he found the right moment, he quietly entered the prince's room and stole a watch worth nearly $1 million. Just as he was about to leave, the prince suddenly returned to the room. The guards immediately searched the entire room, but they did not realize that Richard was hiding just behind a nearby wall. When he saw the right opportunity, Richard slipped out and entered the elevator. At that moment, he believed he was finally safe. But fate had another surprise waiting for him. As soon as he stepped into the car outside, the same prince appeared in front of him again. However, this was not the real prince. It was actually a member of the Misfits team wearing a perfect disguise. This was the same man Richard had met earlier. He was the team's most skilled driver. At that moment, Richard realized that he had been carefully set up. The Misfits team took him directly to their secret hideout, where Ringo was already waiting. Seeing the entire group standing in front of him, Richard immediately understood that he had stepped into a den of thieves. Ringo clearly explained their real mission. Their target was $1 billion worth of gold hidden inside Scholes' private prison, and to achieve this impossible task, they needed needed Richard's help. At first, Richard refused the offer, but the fear of being captured by Shoals slowly began to outweigh his resistance. After thinking carefully, Richard finally agreed to work with the team. From that moment, the story takes another dangerous turn. Even after joining the Misfits team, one small mistake could have exposed the entire team. He thought his plan was simple: steal the gold and then disappear. But Ringo's plan was not that straightforward. On the way, Ringo explained the entire plan to Richard. Stealing the gold stored inside Shoals' private prison would not be easy. The prison had multiple layers of security. There were guards, cameras, alarms, and a system that monitored every small movement. Ringo knew that breaking into such a place would be impossible without help from the inside. Richard felt excited about the plan, but at the same time, he sensed the danger. He understood that this was not just a robbery. It was a mission that could easily cost them their lives. Meanwhile, Shoals realized that Richard had slipped out of his reach. Furious with anger, he ordered his men to search everywhere and capture him. The Misfits team continued moving forward without stopping and eventually arrived in Abu Dhabi. Richard's mind was still restless. He wanted to escape this complicated situation. After leaving the airport, he separated from the team and decided to enjoy himself instead. Richard soon became lost in the glamorous lifestyle of Abu Dhabi. Luxury cars, bright lights, and extravagant parties surrounded him. For a moment, he felt that luck was once again on his side. At one of the grand parties, he noticed a billionaire wearing a branded luxury watch. As usual, Richard began his familiar trick. Within seconds, the watch was already in his hand. But this time, things were different. Just as he was about to walk away, a mysterious woman suddenly appeared. She calmly returned the watch to its owner. Then she quietly placed a pack of children's toys into Richard's hand. Everything happened so quickly that even Richard was stunned. When he looked closely at the woman, it felt as if the ground beneath his feet had disappeared. The woman was none other than his daughter, Hope. Richard had not seen her for many years after his divorce. Seeing her suddenly standing in front of him deeply shook his heart. Hope's presence began to change Richard. He realized that he had spent his entire life thinking only about himself. In the process, he had completely abandoned his own daughter. Hope told him that she already knew everything about him. She even knew about the plans of the Misfits team. That moment changed everything for Richard. He contacted Ringo again. This time, he was not joining the mission because of greed. He decided to help steal the gold for the sake of his daughter. However, he placed one condition. After the mission was complete, he wanted the entire share of the gold for himself. Ringo immediately made one thing clear. The Misfits team had no intention of keeping the stolen money. Their plan was to donate all the gold to charity. Hearing this shocked Richard. For him, stealing had always meant making a profit. For a moment, he considered leaving the mission again. But then Hope spoke to him. For the first time in her life, she asked her father for something. She told him that this mission was for a good cause. It was also a chance for him to correct the mistakes of his past. Richard found the decision extremely difficult. But when he looked into his daughter's hopeful eyes, something inside him changed. For the first time in his life, Richard agreed to do something without expecting profit. And that moment marked the true beginning of the mission to steal the gold. Soon after, the team received important information. They learned that terrorists were planning to remove the gold from the prison within 3 days. This meant the Misfits team had almost no time left. If they did not act immediately, their entire plan would fail. The team decided to create massive chaos inside the prison. The goal was to disrupt the entire security system so that no one would notice their real target. Ringo took the first step. He disguised himself as a sanitation inspector and went to complain to the prison director about the poor condition of the kitchen and the old oven. He explained that the oven was extremely dangerous and could explode at any moment. Such an accident would seriously damage the prison's reputation. The director, who was dreaming of getting a promotion, became worried. He immediately ordered a new oven to replace the old one. However, this was all part of the team's plan. Vic secretly hacked into the system and scheduled the delivery for the next afternoon. The director believed everything was normal, but he had no idea that the real operation was about to begin. On the day of the delivery, the logistics driver was relaxing and drinking nearby. At that moment, Violet arrived. She quickly took advantage of the situation and locked the driver inside a locker. Then one of the Misfits team members took control of the delivery truck and drove it toward the prison. Now it was Richard and Vic's turn. Disguised as maintenance workers, they quietly entered the prison with the delivery. Once inside, Richard suddenly kicked a nearby sculpture. It looked like an accident, but it was actually part of the plan. The secret entrance they needed was hidden beneath that sculpture. Everything seemed to be going smoothly, but suddenly a new problem appeared. The prison director himself walked in for an unexpected inspection. Ringo tried to stop him, but the director refused to listen. Left with no choice, Ringo had to enter the area with him. As soon as the team heard the director's voice, they quickly hid inside the large machinery nearby. Then the director pressed the start button to test the new machine. For a few tense seconds, everyone held their breath. Ringo quickly stepped in and took control of the situation. He calmly explained that the machine had not been fully installed yet. If it was started now, it would only show an error. The director accepted the explanation and finally left the area. The immediate danger was avoided, but the real challenge was still ahead. Ringo took advantage of the moment when the director was leaving. He hugged him politely and secretly stole his access card. This card allowed entry into the most restricted areas of the prison. While waiting for the shift change, Richard and Vic quickly moved toward the laundry room. That room was the only place that provided access to the underground vault where the gold was hidden. As the vault came into view, the team realized how strong the security was. There were thick steel doors, motion sensors, and alarms that remained active at all times. Now the next phase of the plan began. They needed to create chaos inside the prison so that no one would notice what was happening near the vault. Members of the team disguised themselves as food servers. They secretly mixed a very powerful laxative into the prisoners' meals. The inmates, completely unaware, peacefully ate their food. Soon after, chaos began spreading throughout the prison. One prisoner after another suddenly became sick. Vomiting, stomach pain, and panic quickly filled the prison corridors. Doctors, guards, and stretchers rushed in every direction as the situation spiraled out of control. Even the prison director ran to investigate, but the terrible smell and disorder made him feel dizzy. Within minutes, the entire prison had descended into complete chaos. This was exactly the moment the Misfits team had been waiting for. Vic and the other members disguised themselves as cleaning staff and moved toward the restroom area. Warning signs were placed around the area to stop anyone from coming close. Meanwhile, Hope and Prince entered the prison pretending to be investigators. They secretly planted a timed explosive device beneath a vehicle's chassis. It would act as a distraction if the situation required it. Now the real work inside the vault began. Vic carefully located the correct spot and drilled a small hole in the floor. When the timer reached its final seconds, he dropped a small explosive inside. A loud blast followed, but because of the chaos across the prison, no one noticed the sound. The vault door finally opened. Vic pushed a trolley inside and began loading the gold bars. Richard worked quickly beside him, moving the heavy blocks one after another. Suddenly, Vic noticed a surveillance camera pointed directly at them. Instead of panicking, he calmly took a photo of himself holding a gold bar while facing the camera. This was not a joke. The team had already hacked the security system. The still image was uploaded to the surveillance feed. The same frozen frame continued playing on the monitor. When Scholes received news about the disturbance, he immediately ordered a live check of the vault camera. On the screen, the gold appeared to be completely untouched. Because of this, he suspected nothing at first. However, Scholes was not convinced for long. He checked the camera feed again carefully. This time he noticed something strange. The image on the screen was not moving at all. Realizing something was wrong, he rushed toward the vault himself. But by the time he arrived, it was already too late. The Misfits team had completely emptied the vault. Enraged, Scholes immediately ordered the entire prison to be sealed. No one was allowed to leave the facility. At that very moment, a stretcher carrying a sick prisoner was being rolled outside. Scholes noticed it briefly, but he had no idea that the prisoner lying on the stretcher was actually Vic in disguise. Suddenly, a small gold bar slipped from the stretcher and fell onto the ground. Scholes instantly realized something was wrong. He immediately ordered all ambulances to stop. He was now certain that Richard and his team were still somewhere inside the prison. The investigation continued as guards searched everywhere. Just then, Scholes received another update. His men claimed they had captured Richard's daughter. Hearing this news, a satisfied smile appeared on Scholes' face. He believed he now had a way to control Richard completely. But at that moment, two men standing nearby caught his attention. They were wearing protective suits and introduced themselves as employees from a toxic gas cleanup company. They explained that there was a risk of a gas leak inside the prison, and the area needed to be evacuated immediately. Scholes was confused by the sudden warning. That moment, a car suddenly sped past Scholes. He briefly noticed gold inside the vehicle and instantly realized that this might be the real escape plan. Without wasting any time, he ordered his men to chase the car. Scholes did not realize that the vehicle being chased was only a distraction. The car was being driven by Prince, a member of the Misfits team. He intentionally drove the car in the opposite direction to mislead the pursuers. Soon, a high-speed chase began, heading straight toward the desert. Scholes believed that he was finally close to catching them. When the car eventually stopped, he quickly stepped forward and opened the trunk. But the trunk was completely empty. At that moment, he understood that he had been tricked once again. Meanwhile, the real team was still inside the prison. Richard and the other members had already begun the next stage of their plan. They used the sculpture as a casting mold. The gold was melted in the oven and then poured carefully into the mold. Within a short time, a large statue made entirely of gold was created. The team then painted the statue so it looked like a damaged, decorative object. Under the excuse of repairing it, they openly presented the statue to the prison director. The director suspected nothing. He simply completed the paperwork and allowed the team to take the object out of the prison. Meanwhile, Scholes was burning with anger. Just as he was about to pull out his gun, guards suddenly surrounded him. Confused and shocked, he could not understand what was happening. Then the real truth was revealed. The prince he had seen earlier was not an imposter. He was the real Prince El Hali. Before the operation even began, the prince had secretly positioned his own guards nearby. Scholes was now completely trapped. However, However, he believed he still had one final move left. He ordered his men to capture Richard's daughter, but in the next moment, Violet stepped forward. Scholes mistakenly believed she was Hope. In reality, Violet had allowed herself to be captured as part of the plan. Despite being surrounded, she quickly defeated all of Scholes' men within moments. Now Scholes had no escape left. Only Richard and the Misfits team stood before him. In the final stage of the mission, the Misfits team removed the gold from the vault and secretly sent it to charity. They did not keep even a single coin for themselves. Meanwhile, confusion and chaos spread across the streets of Abu Dhabi. But using clever disguises and smart distractions, the Misfits team successfully misled the authorities. No one realized that the gold had already been taken. Richard thanked Ringo and the rest of the team. He promised that he would never live selfishly again. In this way, the $1 billion gold heist was completed quietly, without violence or unnecessary noise. And with that, the story of this movie comes to an end. Thanks for watching.